now listening to Cup of Queens with Paige and Saray, and today we're so excited. We have Kaitlyn Carlson, the owner and founder of Theory Planning Partners. As a certified financial planner, her mission is to get wealth into the hands of women. Kaitlyn offers personal CFO services to the female business owners so they can build wealth alongside the growth of their company.
No matter what stage of life you're at, Kaitlyn has advice for how to prepare for your future. Kaitlyn talks with us about her top 5 stocks to invest in, purchases to avoid, and how to build confidence as a female in a male-dominated industry. She also shares with us the most common trait she sees within her wealthiest clients.
So grab your cup and enjoy!
Hello! Hi! How are you guys?
Good! How about you?
Good. We're so excited to talk with you. We've never had anyone like this on our podcast before.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I feel honored.
Yeah. I feel like it's such an important topic of discussion, especially because of how many business owners and hopefully people that we've talked to has inspired our listeners to start their own business. So you really focus on supplying financial just insight to these business owners, specifically women business owners, which love. We're all about that. So
Me too.
Yeah. And you're the founder and CEO of Theory Planning Partners.
Yes.
Tell us about that. I mean, I feel like women in finance, for one, is just amazing. And tell us about your journey.
Sure. So it's funny. I saw you guys had Jocelyn Lamoureux on not too long ago.
Wow.
That made me laugh. The Lamoureux twins, I looked up to them so much. I was an ice hockey player as well.
No way.
So cool.
Yeah. Similar journey to her. You know, if you wanted to play competitive ice hockey, you had to go away. So I also went to boarding school before I played in college. I didn't make it to the Olympic team. I mean, they are far more impressive than me. But I did get sent over to Finland to play, which was kind of cool.
That's so cool.
More than kind of cool. That's really cool.
That's huge.
Oh my gosh, look at you. Finance and athletic. Like you have all of that going on.
I was listening to the episode and nodding along. I was like, she's right. Time management. Like if you're a student athlete, you just got to figure it out.
Oh my gosh. So where did you play at?
So I played at a liberal arts college here in Massachusetts called Amherst College. And actually I had a bunch of teammates from the Midwest. My freshman year, we won the national championship out in Minnesota, which was pretty cool.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was fun. I guess that was I've kind of just always been in a male-dominated space. So the segue into finance was natural. But yeah, so I grew up playing ice hockey, and my dad and my grandfather were in finance. So I kind of always felt like in the back of my mind that finance was something I wanted to go into. But after I went to boarding school, I went to Amherst and then I majored in psychology. I found psychology so fascinating. You know, why do we make the decisions that we do, and how does that shape our communities? And just learned a bunch about how we operate essentially. And then after I graduated from Amherst, I went into asset management, which is what people know as mutual funds. So we would run portfolios for endowments or for clients of financial advisors. And so when I was at Putnam, that's when I learned what financial advisors did, because we would sell to those advisors. And I felt like that was a great marriage of my interests between psychology and finance, because as an advisor, you're working with families and individuals to help them with their relationship with money. So when I met my husband at my first job, and he was promoted to cover Louisiana and Arkansas as a territory. So we moved down to New Orleans, pretty quickly into my career. And when we moved to New Orleans, that's when I moved into wealth management. And I was the only financial planner covering the Southeast. So like my bio says, I ended up doing 300 financial plans in just about 2 years. And business owners are always my favorite to work with. I just found them so fascinating. They were just like innovative and fearless, and especially first generation, just like the grit and whatever it takes, I thought was so cool. They tended to be phenomenal delegators, quick decision makers, and they were just really rewarding to work with.
Cool.
That's kind of the high level background. And then we ended up moving back up to the Northeast. So now we're back in Boston. Although my husband's family, his grandparents are from South Dakota, and a lot of his family lives in Omaha, Nebraska. So far away from you guys, but like to a Northeasterner, not that far away.
Yeah.
Well, you're familiar enough with the Midwest, and so it's,
Everyone's connected somehow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's so cool how you kind of were able to align those different passions of yours into something that really encompasses all of them. And what then made you decide that you really wanted to do women-focused businesses?
That's a great question. So there were a few things at play. The first one is, like I said before, finance is just so male dominated. I was surrounded by all my colleagues were men, and everyone I was doing the plans for were men. And it was like, bring the wife, or make sure the wife is involved. And I realized when I got to the end of doing 300 financial plans that not one of them was for a self-made woman. And that really bothered me when I realized that. I guess I just got used to it. I think you just get like desensitized to your environment. And I just got so used to working alongside men and for men that I just didn't really think about it. But having female teammates and women empowerment was just such a big part of my upbringing. And while I was going through my experience in wealth management, I also had to deal with a lot of sexual harassment, and that was exhausting. I'm pretty open about it because I find that talking about it, almost every woman I know has some story or can relate on some level. And I ended up having to file 6 sexual harassment complaints in my 3.5 years that I was working at UBS. And starting with, I got sexually harassed my very first week at UBS. So that kind of set the tone for my experience in wealth management. And, that having that happen in your very first week is just such a traumatizing event. And fortunately, they did the right thing. They terminated that advisor, and he had a history of doing this to other women. And when I learned, there was an assistant who came up to me a year later, and she thanked me for speaking up because he had also harassed her for a number of years. And when she shared that with me, I was like, forget it. I'm reporting everything else that's ever happened. I kind of tried to like downplay other things that were said to me, but that kind of began my real passion for being an advocate for women. And I just started to look around, and I noticed more and more, like, where are the women? Like, what's going on? And then while that was happening, I started like following female entrepreneurs on social media, and I just loved rooting for them, right? Like the Sarah Blakely of Spanx and Jessica Alba coming out with The Honest Company. I would always read those stories, and I just thought they were so inspirational. And then when we moved back to Boston, part of the reason why we moved back was because I just couldn't handle the sexual harassment anymore. And I just felt like I wanted to come home. And when we came home, I volunteered as a coach at an accelerator, and just cheering on women and empowering them to create their own wealth and blaze their own trails was just so natural to me that my husband was like, why don't you do this for a living? And yeah, it was really cool. And I really went through, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but like a dark night of the soul where it's just a really trying time. And you're just kind of like, what is my purpose on this planet? I met a sales coach who I adore. She's still my coach to this day. She was also inspirational because she pointed out to me the fact that she's been making 7 figures for almost 10 years. And she went to see a traditional financial advisor and he turned her down because she didn't have $1 million in assets, that's kind of typical how wealth management works, is like you have to have an asset minimum, but there are 2 cohorts that are underserved by the wealth management industry. One of them is business owners because they don't have a lot of liquid net worth. And the other one is women. So Theory is my way of solving this underserved market.
Good for you.
That is incredible.
That is.
And
Thank you.
I mean, you covered a lot in there, but I just have to applaud you again for speaking up about the sexual harassment, because you hear it all the time. It's hard. And there's a lot of women who put up with it for years. What's that movie that we love with the news reporters? Bombshell.
Yeah.
That whole movie,
Yes.
Great example of that. And I mean, so it's inspiring to kind of see someone firsthand who actually stepped forward and did what was necessary. That I applaud you for that.
Thank you. I actually got to have a private conversation with Kaitlyn Carlson.
Oh my God.
Of that movie.
Oh, that's like my dream.
That is my dream.
So freaking cool. If anyone hasn't watched that movie, you have to, because it's a great movie in itself, but the story behind it being true is outrageous.
So
it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And when women speak up and come together, it's just, you're like, why didn't we do this sooner? We're so
unstoppable.
Yes, exactly. Together we can accomplish so much.
And change the world. Yeah. What are different things that you've noticed when working with women and finance?
That's a good question. So I think women are phenomenal investors because they take a long-term approach. Women just tend to be more patient when it comes to money, and they get the bigger picture. And they tend not to fall into like the sexiness of the CNBC, like what's the hot stock, that kind of stuff. They get the planning aspect, the holistic approach to planning for like long-term, decades in advance. A lot of the women that I work with, the things that we're talking about implementing are 10, 20, 30 years in the making, and they don't expect an immediate ROI, return on investment, on that. They get it. So I don't know if that's embedded in our DNA from like child rearing or something, but they seem to intuit that very easily. Whereas men kind of want like this sexy, like high stress, complex solution, when I can promise you I've worked with the richest of the rich, and the simpler, the better. And I think, which is why it's a bummer that women don't give themselves enough credit in this arena, because the industry kind of tries to make the barrier to entry high and tries to make it seem complex. It's not. Anyone could learn it. It's just like, do you want to spend the time? I mean, my sister gets bored to tears by what I do for a living. So not everyone wants to spend their time doing it. But I think hopefully with more information available, women will start to have more confidence in finances. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I notice, is that they're more patient investors.
Well, I'm really just interested. So you talked about women finding their confidence when it comes to investing and in finance. So how can somebody become more confident when it comes to that area of their life?
That's another great question. So podcasts are amazing. Podcasts are a great way to start learning about this kind of stuff. And one that I absolutely love is by Ben Carlson and Michael Batnick. It's called Animal Spirits. And I love their podcast because they're casual, they're funny, they throw in other things that are going on in the world. And they make it very approachable. And they also both have blogs. So I would say if you're a good self-studier, that's a great place to start. Even me being in the industry, I still go back and listen to them because I'm like, what's the buzz on Wall Street? And, like they even write about things like buying versus leasing a car, that type of like personal finance stuff. And then the other thing that I would say is it's never too early to start reaching out and looking for advice, reaching out to somebody who is a CFP like me. So a certified financial planner means that somebody has gone through a comprehensive curriculum of insurance, taxes, investments, like cash flow planning. Did I say? Yeah, I said investments. Just everything that your financial life touches, we've had to go through an in-depth curriculum of getting familiar with all of those wealth building strategies or like debt mitigation, that kind of stuff. So if you look for a CFP, just have a conversation with them and start to get educated about, where you are in your journey, because the biggest mistake that I've seen people make is they think, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm not, when, and especially for business owners, which I say this all the time, but time is your best asset when it comes to investing, because time in the market, like compound interest, makes a huge difference. So it may seem small, but every day that you're not invested in the market is a day that you're missing out on compound interest on your money working for you. So the other thing that's come about that's really been great for the end consumer is robo advisors. So like Betterment is a great place to start if you feel like you're a small fish and you want to just start with an investment account. And they have a blog on their website where you can start to teach yourself about the different options available.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You'll have to send us some links and we'll include them in the description of your episode, because I think any resource that we can provide to our listeners is super helpful. But I do want to touch on what you said about it's never too early. Because I hear that even within my friend group is, I haven't learned about it. I just haven't educated myself about it. So on the flip side, I also hear people say like, oh, I should have done, like, I'm almost behind the 8 ball. I've waited too long. So kind of a two-ended question, but what is kind of that age range that you think people should start talking to an advisor like yourself?
Oh, I keep saying that's a good question. They're all good questions. You really need advice at every stage of your life. When you're in your 20s, it's usually about like reducing student loans or, getting a good rate on a mortgage. Then when you get into your 30s and you start making more money, although I will say the caveat is at your very first job, you should be contributing to your retirement account, at least up to the match if you're an employee. And if you are a business owner, you should also be starting a retirement account. And I've had people put like $1 a month away. It's just really important to set up the habit. Even if it's $1, you're setting up the infrastructure. And then once you start to get more cash flow, then you can start putting more. Then you can start putting $500 away. Then you can start putting $5,000 away. And the people that set up that infrastructure and like at least start the habit, they tend to be better off, because like I'll use myself as an example. I started contributing to my retirement account as soon as I got out of school. So by the time I just turned 30, I had almost $100,000 in my retirement account. And no one should have an excuse, because I came out of college with well into 6 figures of student debt. So I was paying down my student loans and I was contributing to my retirement account. It just takes like a little bit over a long period of time. And that stuff will definitely like add up faster than you think. So I'd say when you feel like cash flow is tight, start with the habits for yourself. And then when you start to feel like cash flow it's coming easier, your basic living expenses are being paid for, and you feel like what's next, then that's a good time to start talking to someone like me.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's so great. I just think that the sooner people can learn about this and get connected with someone, the better. But tell us an example, and this can be whatever one you want to go with, whether it's for an individual or for a business, but what is an example of a financial plan that you would give to somebody? Walk us through kind of a scenario of what you would recommend.
Okay. So the first thing that I do when I take on a client is I help them build their balance sheet. So I help them list out all of their assets and all of their liabilities. And for their liabilities, I get an understanding of what interest rate they're paying. because typically there are opportunities for us to lower that interest rate somehow, and that will lower their monthly payment, which will allow them to save more. So we do their balance sheet, we go through their cash flow, because I also need to understand, like, are you saving more than you're spending? And most people have no idea what they're spending, to be honest. And I'm like, do you give me an idea? And it takes a while to back into what that number is. And that tends to not change. So like, if you're, whether you're making $50,000 or $5 million, I've just found that across the board that people aren't super diligent about knowing. And my husband and I joke, we got this from Ben and Michael of that podcast, but it's called lifestyle creep. So it's like you start doing better in life and then you start spending more, so it's like that lifestyle creeps with your income going up. So once we build the balance sheet and then we get an understanding of their cash flow, and then we go through and look for strategic opportunities, like I was talking about, where we can like reduce debt, or I'll recommend setting up savings accounts. And I typically break that into 3 areas. So the first one should be your retirement account, because that plays double duty. It helps you reduce your tax liability as a business owner, and it also helps you start saving for retirement. So it's like, it's helping you lower your taxable income, and it's helping you start to build your assets. And then the second one is there's 3 buckets. So that's tax deferred, which means you pay taxes later. Then there's tax free, which is either you can do a Roth contribution or you can do a backdoor Roth conversion. And then there's taxable. So if you're contributing to those 3 buckets, what you're doing is you're giving yourself choice and you're giving yourself levers to pull. And that's what wealthy people I really see do the best, is they have options. So no matter what happens, like if this Biden tax proposal goes through, they'll have options available to them in terms of like where they're able to take money. So they don't have all their eggs in one basket. So we essentially build out where they are today. And then, the most important thing that I neglected to talk about was we talk about their goals. Like, what's the point of the money? Like what's a meaningful life to you? And this is really interesting, but people tend to be black and white about this. I come across people that are adamant that they want to retire at 45 or 50. And then I come across people that never want to retire. They love what they do. They want to work until they die. And it's pretty black and white. I don't usually get a lot of people that are in between, but I need to know what your goals are so I can help you shape what my recommendations are. And then we use those 3 vehicles to help build towards whatever the goals are.
I feel like that question that you just asked, what is a meaningful life to you, is so powerful when you think about it like that, because what is the goal? You're saving all this money and you're putting it to use and the money's working for you, but what's the end goal? I think when you really ask that question, it really makes people think about it. And I know you mentioned earlier too that you've worked with some of the wealthiest people. So what are some surprising things that you've seen from some of those people? I mean, are those the ones that want to just work forever, or?
It's funny. Sometimes, yes, that's actually brings up some memories. I would say probably the most surprising thing is the richest people in the world to know that money isn't what brings happiness. And I know that that's a cliche, but I'll give you a specific example. So I worked with a gentleman who had a company that created like glue that goes in your cell phones. And this company was his life's work. And he ended up selling it for $60 million. And he ended up not too long after starting to drink every day at lunchtime. So, I mean, everyone would say, oh my God, you have $60 million. Like, why would you be depressed? But he lost his purpose in life. And I know when we're all in this rat race of like trying to, pay bills and like live in the house that we want to live in, we don't have time to like think about that stuff. But it's really the people that get there. having been so close to them and seeing them so intimately, I learned in my 20s that money really isn't what brings happiness. It really is what's giving you purpose in life. And if you lose that purpose, or you don't spend time thinking about what your purpose is beyond the company or beyond your livelihood, then it's going to be a pretty tough transition for you, no matter how much money you have. So after watching that in quite a few cases, I invest in my own development and my own mental well-being, because if the room inside your head is a shack, then it doesn't matter if you're living in a mansion. And I've just seen it so many times. Like I said, I know it gets thrown around as a cliche, but it's really true. Whether you are selling a business or retiring, it's really important to find purpose that goes beyond your livelihood. So that's really interesting. And it's funny, the other thing I would say when I get this question is, it reminds me of the People magazine section, rich people, they're just like us.
Just like us. Just like us, but not. No, just kidding.
But yeah. I mean, there are crazy, crazy, crazy levels of wealth. There really are. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we are all just people, and we all just do want meaning out of life. And the most meaningful thing is relationships. I've also seen money create a lot of dysfunction. So sometimes there can be a yearning for simplicity too, especially when you're dealing with multi-generational wealth, where you're dealing with third, fourth, fifth generation wealth. It tends to be something that confuses people. So there's a lot of richness in simplicity. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have big dreams. Like my clients, they want to build empires, and I am all about that. And I keep them accountable to that. But they're also fulfilling a purpose within themselves. And there's personal development going on there, that's the underlying most important thing. That's what life is about, right? So
yeah, that is such a powerful answer and such a powerful message to think about. I think everyone is on the grind, finding a way to, get up the ladder financially. And it does really make you think, what is it for? What is the goal here? I absolutely loved everything that you mentioned there. And there's gotta be, working with the high caliber accounts and people that you have spent time with, there's gotta be moments where you have seen pretty big financial mistakes, or maybe just livelihood mistakes that are stemmed from financial. What is one of the biggest mistakes that you see time and time again from, all levels, and what are some solutions for those mistakes?
So I would say, again, the biggest mistake is people not taking action soon enough. And it comes from a level of intimidation. So I would urge people to just take it in bite-sized amounts, to start educating yourself, and also start loving your numbers. If you're a business owner, this is especially important. You have to start learning how to love your numbers, because it's not like anything, right? If it's a foreign language to us, we tend to reject it or, stick our head in the sand. That's probably what I've seen is the biggest mistake, is people stick their head in the sand. But it's not scary once you start to get familiar with something. So I would say, make money dates with yourself and learn how to love what your cash flow means. And once people start to understand, once they start to see the rewards of investing, then I find people get really into it. And then they start to make more wealth creating decisions. Because another thing that I noticed with wealthy people is they don't see it as saving, because saving can kind of have this deprivation attached to it. They see it as investing. They see it as, I'm taking this money to go make money. And when you make that mindset shift, where it doesn't feel like scarcity, it feels like you're more on offense. So you're this money has a purpose and a job, and it's to go make more money. And no one gets money making money better than wealthy people. Wealthy people they know their money makes money. They know that they don't get rich off of their salary. They get rich off of, investing, and that can come in all types of different forms. What else? If you're a business owner, also taxes. So that's another thing. Wealthy people are maniacal about their taxes and the tax loopholes. And, you'll see like when an election comes around, presidents get a really hard time for not paying a lot of taxes. They're not doing anything illegal. They're just taking advantage of the rules and regulations. You can't fault them for that. They hired really smart people to figure it out, and they pay less in taxes. And I'm not saying that that's right, but I'm just saying they're really maniacal about their taxes.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
You do,
especially with the year that we just had with the election, that
Yeah.
So-and-so didn't pay any of their taxes, but they're not in the wrong. Like, this is what they have researched and found that it's okay to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's all wealth creation is. It's figuring out, I tend to say it's like figuring out what your chess pieces are in life and figuring out the rules of the game, and then figuring out how to move your chess pieces around the board, and hiring not just CPAs or accountants that are going to crunch the numbers, hiring accountants that are going to help you make strategic decisions. So for example, one thing that got me into this, kind of like sparked my interest in financial planning. My husband's family inherited farmland in Nebraska, and it was rented out to sharecroppers. So they ended up doing a 1031 exchange so that they didn't have to pay taxes, and they bought a condo in Boston, Massachusetts. So now they rent that condo out and they get income every month. So that's like a tax strategy that's available. But I would never, this is when I was 23, I think this happened. And I was like, how did corn farmland in Nebraska translate into a condo in Boston, Massachusetts, where you have, freshly out of college students that are always going to be willing to pay top dollar in rent? Like, those types of those are wealth building strategies. So finding professionals that can help guide you through those circumstances can be instrumental in building wealth.
Yeah. And that's an example of what you said about having your money make money. You could have easily taken that chunk of money and just put it into savings, but now you've turned it into a property that's going to be making money more in the long run. So
yes, and in two ways too, because the property itself will appreciate in value.
Okay.
A lot of that neighborhood in Boston has been built up, so the value of that house is going up, and they're getting the rental income.
Yeah.
So, and wealthy people are phenomenal at making money multiple ways. So I'm sure you've heard before, but like having multiple streams of income it helps you weather the storms of different environments. So COVID, for example, having multiple streams of income, like if you only have brick and mortar and you're dependent on brick and mortar, that's going to be really hard for you to get through COVID. Yeah.
No, that's really, really cool. And we're big Grant Cardone fans. We love that stuff. So like you are speaking our language. We're like, yes, this is awesome.
It's really
it's so interesting.
That's a really good point, Sray, that you brought that up. What are some of your favorite books? Like, are there any? I know like Richest Man in Babylon, that's a huge one. I'm trying to, like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What are some other really good ones that you would recommend?
What's funny is this probably isn't the best answer, but I don't read any of those books outside of work. No.
Oh gosh, I'm shocked.
So
No.
what do you do to kind of, get re-inspired? I know you mentioned some of the podcasts, which, like I said, we're going to link, but are there any other things that maybe have changed the way that you think about your financial planning strategy?
Change the way I think about it. So I read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, which is a book that talks about a cash flow system that was really interesting, because at the end of the day, it's just taking essentially an envelope system to your business. But he pointed out the fact that as business owners, we tend not to work with human nature. We tend to work against it because we put ourselves last when it comes to paying ourselves, we always put the business first and we're always thinking about ourselves last. So even though we are the best employee in our business, we're typically getting paid the least. We're like the last one to eat. So I thought that was a really interesting book, because even though I'm great at personal finance, when I opened my business, my first thought was, I wonder when I'll be able to pay myself. You know,
Yeah.
It's not like that comes second nature. And his whole theory with the book is based on Parkinson's law, which is demand will rise to meet supply. So if you have like a whole week to get something done, you'll take the whole week to do it. If you have an hour to get something done, you'll get it done in that hour. It's the same thing with cash flow in your business. So like if you look at one account that has all the money, you'll find a way to spend all that money. And so with Profit First, he teaches you how to break out. You should put your profit first, hence the title. So you should prioritize your profit, and then your owner's pay, and then taxes, right? Because you always have to pay taxes. And then you run your company based off of the money that's left over. And his argument is that when you change your focus to focus on the profit, you're going to start acting that way. And you're also going to get more innovative with your operating expenses. So, I built my own website. Like I had to be really scrappy in the beginning because I needed to pay myself and I needed to get theory up and running, but I couldn't pay someone $10,000 to build a website for me. But now I know how to use Squarespace. So it's like, it makes you a better entrepreneur because you challenge yourself to learn new things and new avenues and fixes until you get to a point where you can outsource those things. So that's been a really instrumental book. Some people are split on accountants are split on that because it tends to add a lot of bookkeeping, but it makes sense to entrepreneurs. But yeah, another person I absolutely adore who's done so much for the financial planning industry is Michael Kitces. And I'll send you his website too. Michael has incredible articles about anything under the sun when it comes to financial planning. So that's certainly a place you can direct your listeners if they want to start getting more steeped. He's really nerdy about financial planning, so it might be too much. Might be over the top, but you never know. You have some people that really run with the topic. But yeah, I think I just do it so much for work that outside of work, I tend to read spiritual books or personal development books.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. You got to have the balance.
You do.
You can't do it all. Otherwise you might go crazy.
You'll get burnt out.
For sure.
Yeah. As far as I think those were all such great options, especially for the business owners that we have listening. But I always hear about different things for individuals like Acorns. I think that's app managers, different type of apps that can kind of help you invest in maybe a more surface level kind of thought process. So do you use any of those with your clients who are maybe just needing a little bit more of a simplistic explanation, or do you find those to be complicated?
I don't use any of those because I manage the investments for my clients.
Yeah.
It's called clearing. So I clear through Charles Schwab. So Charles Schwab holds all the assets for my clients.
Sure.
But my clients, now that I've focused on this direction of working with female entrepreneurs, do tend to be younger. And I do see a lot of them have a Robinhood account or an Acorn account. Yeah. The thing that I don't love about this Robinhood era is it kind of sensationalizes stock picking, and stock picking is not a wealth building strategy. So I mean, it is, but it's kind of gotten to this gambling point where you're just the meme stocks, like GameStop and stuff like that. That's not really a sound financial plan. So in those circumstances, that's where I do think something like Betterment does a pretty good job, where they're giving you some options when it comes to adding in financial planning. You're not just straight stock picking. So I'll give you guys the link to that as well. I think Betterment's a great place to start. And like I said, they have support. They have blog on their website where you can start to read and learn. And they do that's what they're called, robo advisors. They do a good job of hand-holding you where you are. Another one, actually, so I mentioned Ben Carlson and Michael Batnick. They have, I should have mentioned this before. So they're part of Ritholtz Wealth Management, and they have a subdivision of Ritholtz Wealth Management called, I think it's called like Launch or Rocket, but that's for younger people who want financial planning support that might not be like meeting certain thresholds of wealth. So there, I'll give you their link too. We'll have a bunch of follow-ups. All the links.
Interesting. Cool. Okay.
But they're great because you can graduate into a relationship with an advisor.
Cool.
Sure.
Yeah. I think just anything, it's such a complex thing, especially if people haven't, done the book reading or the researching or listening to podcasts. So it's great to just have some of those kind of initial pushes to, okay, let's check this out.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other thing is on my website, I offer, like, you can book a call with me because part of my mission really is to help people get in touch with the right resources. So if you feel like you are a business owner or you have special circumstances and you're not sure where to go, anyone that has done that and booked a call with me, I always make sure they get to the right person.
That's awesome.
Oh,
we'll
cool.
obviously have that information.
Yeah. So I know on your website too, you talked a lot about like women standing out in a male dominated industry. What do you mean by that?
I think that women have been fairly bashful in anything that is around money. And I think now we're coming into this era where, like, even thinking back to the generation that raised millennials, like, it was still fairly new for women to be working and women to be self-sufficient. And now, like, I'm in a marriage that's a partnership. Like, we both work, and I have the expectation of myself that I will be self-sufficient and hopefully the breadwinner someday. So I think getting women to, first of all, start talking openly about money, because that's another difference that I noticed, is that men are much more open talking about money than women are. So really empowering women to know that it's not that complicated. It's not that hard. You just have to start somewhere, and even start talking to your friends, because there's a lot that we can learn from each other. And it's important to have confidence. At one point in time, I was a novice and I didn't even know what a stock was. And now I do this for a living. So everyone has to start somewhere, and you can just start getting comfortable with your cash flow, which is as simple as what's coming in and what's going out. And if you master your cash flow, guess what? You'll be mastering something that like 90% of the planet doesn't have a good hold on. So start with something small. If you can start like saving on a monthly basis, that's a great place to start. And then really just proceeding with confidence, I think, is the biggest thing. Don't doubt yourself. And it is still such a male dominated world, but what I do try to do is I have a lot of relationships with other female advisors, because I think anytime that we're trying to collaborate, we're helping each other. And so I really never see competition. I have a very unique subset of women that I serve, and then I have alliances with other women to help other women. So I don't want to like it be exclusionary, but I'm kind of creating a response to the boys club that I was a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you should. That's the thing, is that boys club has been around, and there's no reason for us women to not form something of our own. If it's going to make us more confident and make us rally around each other, why would we not? So I think it's incredible that you're doing that and that you're putting a focus on that. And I think you're going to have a very great answer for this next question, which we try to ask.
I hope.
Yes. And that is either A, what does a queen mean to you? Or we're giving you a part 2, because we know you've worked with some incredible women, and we want to know it. Otherwise, if you have witnessed someone being a true queen, if you have a story.
Someone being a true queen. Okay. Well, I think when I think of someone who's a queen, I think it's someone who is just unapologetically herself. And for some reason, the best answer that comes to mind is Lizzo.
Yes, we love Lizzo. Can you tell?
I don't know. That was the first thought that came to mind was Lizzo. Like she just owned who God made her, you know, and it's so like, I have chills thinking about it, but her owning who she is has massively impacted so many other women owning who they are, owning their own body image and owning like their own, just like, get out of here, F boy. I know, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but just like, I don't have time for you. Like I am here and I'm doing my thing. And oh, that is just so, there's really nothing more inspiring than that, than owning who you are. And there's only one of you. So be you, you know, I mean, that's a queen to me.
You can't not feel like a queen listening to Lizzo. It's just it's physically impossible.
I really love that. I love that you brought up Lizzo.
I do too.
Thank you. Yeah, that was like a gut reaction. So she must be in my subconscious by this point.
Yeah. I hope she hears this and can thank you for that.
Yes, totally.
Now's our game. And we're so excited. I'm personally so excited because I'm like, oh, there's a few things in here that I don't know what you're going to say. So it's called purchase or pass. So we're going to give you a variety of different categories per se, and then, or items within a category. And then you can say purchase that or pass. And then explanation, go for it. If not, that's okay too. So,
okay.
Right. The first one is a jet.
Pass.
Yeah. Gosh dang, I was really that would be okay.
I'll tell you why. Because we just watch all of these documentaries on Netflix and now like we're composting. Like I'm trying to be super green and just, this is like investing. Like I don't know anything about being green and I don't know anything. It's funny because like I was mentioning Nebraska, like my husband's side of the family, they're farmers and I can't even keep a plant alive. But like the little tidbits, I'm like, okay, I'm contributing to the planet by like composting and getting my son like compostable diapers. So I don't think in good conscience where I am in my green journey right now, I could purchase a jet.
Yeah, probably wouldn't align super well.
Sense. Yeah.
Okay, well, similar, but a brand new car.
Pass. That is one of the cars they're depreciating assets. You have to pay insurance on them, but we also live in a town where you can walk everywhere. So that's circumstantial too.
Nice. But would you say buying used is a better investment?
Cars are so personal preference. I always buy used.
Yeah.
I can't bring myself to buy a new car. My mom, on the other hand, will never buy a used car.
Yeah.
So even though I point out to her why a used car is better, that's her thing. For some people it's purses, for some people it's cars. Arguably cars are more expensive than purses in most cases.
It should be.
yes, it should be. Yeah, I always buy used. Actually, Jake and I joke like, I don't know, we're just not into cars for some reason. So pass on that. But if I had to choose, then I would choose the jet.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. A timeshare.
Pass.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about a vacation home?
Purchase.
Purchase.
Okay.
Why?
Mm-hmm. So my grandfather had a second home growing up, or when I was growing up, and it was an incredible opportunity for us to build a relationship with him.
Oh, what a good answer.
Awesome.
Oh my God. That's
so
not what I
sweet.
was expecting you to say. And that is perfect.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you.
Okay. So Airbnb or a rental property?
Ooh, Airbnb or rental property? I would say a rental property.
Okay.
Because you can be selective about your tenants and you can get if you have a good relationship with good tenants, it can really be like a great investment for you. Airbnb, you're kind of like, I don't know who's coming in, and that's what I would say.
That's a good
You're
point.
kind of at the mercy of people. Yeah, that is good.
Yeah.
All right, these are some more luxurious items, but artwork.
Oh, purchase every day of the week.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I had to convince my husband to take $3,000 of our wedding money I was like, if I pass my CFP, I've been eyeing this painting in a boutique in New Orleans. And we were like in a race to get it with another couple from Alabama.
You're kidding.
Wow.
I have such an appreciation for art. And really, and one of my clients, she's retired, talking about purpose. She's a retired attorney, and she took up painting, and she's incredible. And she painted the most beautiful, I'll just show you guys. I'm in my bedroom right now.
Yeah.
She painted this.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So cool.
Art is like one of those things where it's just like, I know we're animals, but we're not animals because we can appreciate art. It's just like, you don't have to have it, but it's what an incredible expression of creativity.
Yes.
So that means a lot to me.
Purchase it is.
Okay. Diamonds or fine jewelry?
That's interesting. Diamonds or fine jewelry? Diamonds.
Diamonds.
Yeah. Because I'm sure you guys didn't want an explanation for every single
We do.
answer.
No, we kind of do. Every time you answer, I'm like, okay, but why?
Tell us why.
Well, of course, diamonds appreciate really well. But also I am a like simplicity person. Like I wear these pearls every day. So if I wear my diamond every day, it kind of goes with who I am as a person. Where like if I had a really nice set of diamond earrings, I would probably wear them every day.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
All right. What about designer items? And we kind of mentioned handbags. So let's use that as an example.
I firmly believe I take like an investing approach to everything in my life.
Yeah.
So everything that I own is nice. So because I expect to get a lot of wares out of it, and I appreciate it. I really appreciate high quality. So purchase, but I'm not like really nice shoes, or a nice handbag would be great. I'm not like a super handbag person, but like in my clothes, I pretty much have like mostly designer clothes, but I don't have a lot of clothes, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Quality over quantity.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay. So, and again, I know it really varies. So stocks like Apple, Chick-fil-A, pharmaceuticals, S&P 500, like what are the best stocks to invest in? And those ones that I just listed, sorry, I list them really fast. Would you purchase or pass?
S&P 500 every day of the week.
Purchase.
Yes.
Surrey's like, oh, this one. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, Paige goes, what's that one? I'm like, I think that's like the main one. I don't know a lot, but I've heard about it.
Good job, buddy.
Paige goes, what about Chick-fil-A? Is that a good stock? I'm like, I mean, I like it.
I like to eat it. No, I'm just kidding.
That is hilarious. Yes. And this is like, so the thing with buying the market is so like JCPenney, for example, no, is it JCPenney? I don't know. I heard this example. I was walking the other day, and I think it was JCPenney was valued at like $85 in 2007. And it was down to like 60 cents not that long ago. And the thing with individual stocks is like, when do you pull the trigger? Like, when do you get out? Do you get out at $60? Do you get out at $40?
Mm-hmm.
Like you get into that mind game, and going back to the psychology, if you buy broad market exposure, you're always riding the wave of Amazon, of Apple. Like you're riding the wave of their performance, because S&P 500, this is going to be super nerdy, so I'll try and keep it short, but S&P 500 is market weighted. So you're going to have, because Apple's a bigger company, you're going to have more exposure to Apple. So you're going to pick up more of Apple's performance. So it's just a less stressful way to invest.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What would you say if, just off the top of your head right now, and we know it changes, but if you had to invest in 5 markets right now, what would they be?
So there's a saying, which is the only free lunch in investing is diversification.
Okay.
So you should invest in all of them.
Everything.
Okay, going now.
So my clients they have a mix of stocks and bonds. So they have US exposure, they have developed international exposure, they have emerging markets exposure. Some people have tilts within that. Like I have one client that really doesn't want a lot of emerging markets exposure because it can be volatile. And then having bonds to mitigate. So I kind of explain it like equities are like the engine, and that like the engine to grow your money. And then fixed income, which is bonds, is kind of like the buffer. So like your equities are aggressive, and then fixed income is kind of like the buffer. And then you move it so you go most aggressive, then you like start to take your foot off the gas and go more moderate, and then move into a money market, which is like a cash equivalent. So those are, when you're talking about like liquid investments, those are kind of like the main buckets. But having international exposure is important because there are time periods when the US does not outperform, and when the dollar is not favorable, and all that stuff kind of like plays in over a long period of time. I mean, the US has done phenomenally well, like especially since the 2008 financial crisis. But there will come a time, they all ebb and flow. So having healthy diversification, and then also real estate too, like we just talked about. We're not super handy people, and I invest in the public markets for a living. So I'm most comfortable with the public markets, but we own our house. So our balance sheet is diversified. Like we have real estate exposure in that regard. So we're building up our liquid investments, and we have our house, which is real estate. So getting diversification in that regard is really important too. And also like invest in what you're familiar with. So for us, like I just don't feel like we don't even know how to like hang a painting. So I don't think I'm going to like go and flip a house.
Do what you know.
And let other people do their thing.
Yes. I mean, maybe at some point someday, we'll start to dip our hand into that, but the public markets are where I'm most comfortable. So that's kind of where we tend to put our money.
And when you say public markets, give us an example of that, because I just want the easiest explanation.
Yes. So the public markets is like Apple, Amazon, is the S&P 500. What it basically means is like you can buy a share of, like if you own a share of Apple, technically you're an owner of Apple.
Yeah.
So the public markets means like you have public access to ownership of that company. Private markets would be like my company. So actually that's a good point. Like the first place, if you're a business owner, the first place you should be investing is your business, because your business is your best opportunity for wealth creation. Then once you start investing in your business and that starts generating wealth and cash flow for you that's going above your basic living expenses, now you need to start saving. And that's when you should start investing in both public markets and real estate. And then there's this whole other subsector called the private markets, which is like private equities or alternatives, where you can get direct access to private equity companies, go into a business that would be like maybe struggling, and they inject money and turn it around. So that's like, so you don't know what it's valued at. With public markets, you know every single day what the value of that company is. With private markets, it's a little bit more murky. So private markets, you don't tend to get into until you're like high net worth, ultra high net worth, where you can carve out a piece of your portfolio to allocate towards private markets. But by and large, for the majority of people, invest in your business, invest a little bit in real estate, and invest in stocks and bonds.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
Or things like your eyes are glazing over.
No, this is so good.
So
I
helpful.
truthfully will probably listen to this again,
Yeah.
3 times with a notebook and rewind, maybe Google a couple things that I didn't know. But overall, so incredibly helpful and really so inspiring what you're doing. Not only just your knowledge in finance, but your appreciation for wanting to help women. It's so incredible, and it's everything that we stand for with Cup of Queens. So we really have appreciated this so much.
Oh, thank you guys so much. Thank you for having me and letting me ramble on about just boring
It was
jargon.
Not boring at all.
Not
Just
boring.
it's gonna help us all get our financial ish together.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I was just going to say, before we go, where can people find you and connect with you?
Yes. Feel free to come to my website. So that's theoryplanning.com, and that's TheoryPlanning.com. Can I spell planning? And then I'm also
did a lot of talking. Your brain should be a little fried, I feel after explaining all that to us.
Oh, and then I'm also on I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, so you guys can follow or connect with me there too. And I'm on LinkedIn also under Kaitlyn Carlson.
Awesome. We'll have that all linked, and including all the other links that you talked about, all the helpful resources that you explained. We're really excited to share that with our audience, and thank you so much again for everything.
Yes, this was so fun. Thanks for getting my mind thinking about private jets and all this stuff.
Let us know. Let us know if that changes.
I will.
Okay. Have a good night.
Bye, guys. Take care.